week in cricket, there has been a serious changing of the guard for Australia as Tim Paine stepped down as captain and then decided to have some time away from the game indefinitely. Australia has a new captain, that being paceman Pat Cummins, and a very familiar deputy.
It's a really special time. It was always in the back of the mind that this might pop up at one stage, and yeah, it's right at the start of an Ashes series. I feel like I've been really well equipped. I've had a good, few years of training. If this did pop up, and Mum and Dad were super excited. Yeah, there was a few tears. I guess feel really lucky. I think it's really hit home the added scrutiny of being captain. Even Tim, when I spoke to him this morning, he wanted to make it really clear that part of his decision of taking a break was he didn't want this to be a distraction. A lot of the pressure and the responsibility of being perfect is unreasonable. I think it's too much to ask of anyone.
It's the second most important job in the country behind the Prime Minister.
We've got to manage our expectations of everyone a little bit more. Yeah, I won't always get things right. I'm certainly not perfect. From the outset, I was absolutely determined if I was captain to have someone like Steve as vice captain next to me.
The opportunity, obviously, to be standing here next to Patrick as a formal leader or a titled leader, I'm truly honoured. There'll be some negativity from some people around it. I understand that and I get that. For me, I know that I've grown a great deal over the last 3 or 4 years. There's times on the field when I can help and I guess help the workload with Pat, then that's my job.
Steve Smith back in an official role as a leader in Australian cricket. Alongside there, the 47th Test captain for Australia in Pat Cummins. The 39th is sitting alongside us here at the desk. Mark, what do you think of the appointment, in particular Pat Cummins at the top?
Oh, look, no great surprise, really. I think he was always going to get the job, particularly under the circumstances that he received the job. Obviously, ideally, I'm sure from all cricket lovers and particularly the Cricket Australia, would have loved to have seen Tim see through this summer and then maybe hand it over to Pat in a more pleasant way, if that's the right way to put it. But you've got to make decisions at the time, and Pat's the right man for the job. It's interesting in his comments, though, that he mentioned Steve Smith. Now, obviously, he's sitting alongside him in a Zoom call, but I suspect that Pat wanted Steve Smith as vice-captain. I think that's important to note because people will have negativity around Steve Smith, and we've read some of that this week. But it's important now, I think, as Pat Cummins is a fast bowler, it will be tougher for him as a captain, and I've mentioned that on this show around the logistics of being a fast bowling captain. It's important that he has someone in the field who he can go to, he can trust, and has a great cricketing knowledge, particularly on the field, and I think that's where Steve Smith will be of great help to Pat.
Mark, I just want to focus on Pat a little bit. You've talked before about the difficulty from a logistics point of view of being a fast bowling captain, but there's this historical idea that fast bowlers don't have the temperament to be a captain. How does Pat Cummins break that mould?
Oh, look, I don't think that's been the problem. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see it as a temperament potential problem.
So he's got a great temperament.
He's got a very good temperament.
How does he break the mould of the fast bowler,
the problem is that moment in the field. That's where you, from an absolute cricket point of view, take away the off-field stuff, but from a cricket point of view, when you're on the field and you're managing bowlers, setting fields, particularly for slow bowlers like Nathan Lyon, the captain, that's when you shine or you don't shine. And I think from Pat Cummins' point of view, that's when he might be running in bowling, as he does, 140, 150 k's an hour, huffing and puffing, trying to get wickets. And then at the end of his over, and maybe in Brisbane first test, it's 35 degrees, he's hot, he's bothered, he might be fiery, and then Nathan Lyon's bowling at the other end. He's got to make sure that Nathan Lyon's ready to go to bowl and help him out as much as he can as captain to bowl his 6 best deliveries in the next over. That's tough when you're a captain. Oh, you're a fast bowling captain.
So we get that Pat needs some help, and Steve Smith's an obvious choice. From one legendary captain to another, Chappelli. He raised some issues around Steve Smith and what occurred and his ban and so on, and he made clear that he doesn't think that he should have the vice captaincy. What's your view?
Oh, well, as I've said right from the word go, really, things were done 3 years ago, and once again they'll be debated, and Ian Chappell and I disagree, as do Shane Warne and I. Shane also has made some comments during the week, but I've always said that Steve, in my opinion, made a bad mistake of oversight, and he's paid his 1 year ban for that, another year of leadership ban for that, And at the time, the board felt that was appropriate, and I'm not going to debate that here again. That's been done. That's been served. It is now time to move on. And Cricket Australia felt the same way, that when these protocols were put in place, Steve had to show over the last 2 or 3 years that, firstly, he'd turned the fans around, and I think he's done that a little bit. His teammates are happy for him to be a potential captain, and I think that's been the case for a while. And thirdly, he had to have his form right, and I think his form has been excellent. So I think he's got 3 ticks there. He will not win everyone over, and I don't think he'll win Ian Chappell over either, but that's the world we live in. I think Cricket Australia made the right decision in the best interest of the team here.
Mark, within a week of Tim Paine announcing he was stepping down as captain but wanted to stay within the Australian Test fold, he has decided to take a time away from the game. Do you think it was the only viable option for both himself, his family, and maybe perhaps the cricket team as well?
Unfortunately, yes. I think I said on this show last week that he stood down at that stage as captain, but I said, someone asked me, will he play in the first Test? I said yes, if he can get himself right, if he can feel right. And unfortunately, having played that second 11 game for Tasmania, where he made, I think, 1 and 7 in his 2 innings, he must have known out in the field, this just doesn't feel right. The extra scrutiny around it, the fact that he wouldn't be able to focus just purely on playing cricket for Australia on December 8. And that would be a massive distraction for him and obviously for the team. So I think he's made a good all-round decision here. But first and foremost, I think he's got to get himself right and his family right.
Well, you guys, everyone on this panel here, obviously, that I'm sitting around, has captained their country in their respective sports. Do we expect, Craig, too much of our national captains as people, let alone as sports stars?
I think sometimes we expect too much of all athletes, and athletes are the same as anyone else. They have talent, they certainly have discipline and resilience, and all of these qualities that we really love to see. But at the same time, they make mistakes like anyone else. The question is, when it comes to captaincy, though, I think is different, because the captain is also a representative of the game. So Steve Smith, I think, is a really great example, because what you're saying is, OK, he's back in form and he's won over the fans and so on, Mark is saying, but ultimately it's also about the principles of the game. What does the captaincy mean itself, right? For other athletes, we all make mistakes in our life. That is part of growth, and therefore people, if they serve their sentence like anyone else, they have the opportunity to come back. But it is a really important principle.
I feel like social media is one of those things too that catches up with people. I get up and thank the heavens every day that social media wasn't around, well, when we were playing, because Mark Taylor and I might not have careers if that was the case. But I also feel like you're so right, Craig, with that. The captaincy really does set the stage. And I think with the Australian cricket captaincy, it's often regarded as the second most important position in the nation. I saw a journalist on Twitter saying when Tim Paine gave his press conference, the whole room stopped. That doesn't happen for the Prime Minister, but it happens for him. But there's great reward with being in that position. The rewards are financial. We all know that Mark's shouting us Christmas lunch today. So with that, there is also that great responsibility. So you're right. You've got to just be that. There's another level to that captaincy. Yeah,
I think Pat was very smart in his press conference the other day. He used those words, managing expectations. I think that's really important that he got that out early. He got out the fact he's going to use Steve Smith a lot more in the field, which from a cricket point of view will be very different from what we've seen from Australian captains in the past. And he also says we've got to manage expectations because, yes, it is an important job, but as Craig rightfully points out, they're just human beings in the end, and they don't always get it right.
One final one on expectations, with no Tim Paine there now as wicket-keeper. Who comes in for that first Test, December 8 at the Gabba?
Well, I think it's got to be Alex Carey. Here's my side, which obviously has changed this week. Marcus Harris at the top of the order will partner David Warner at the top there. I've got Travis Head in at number 5. Just ahead of Usman Khawaja, but there's a inter-team trial match starting very shortly where Khawaja and Head will go almost head-to-head, if that's the right way to put it. Carey I've got in instead of Josh Inglis, although Josh Inglis has been the T20 side recently, is putting a bit of pressure on, but Alex Carey's been around now for a while and been a past vice-captain of the Australian side, so of the Australian one-day side, that is. So I've got him in there just for experience, but there's, there's a sort of an unsettled look about this team now that I wasn't expecting we'd be talking about only 2 weeks out from the first test.
England just flying under the radar. This has been the best build-up for them, I guess, the team here.
Absolutely.
In a long time.
And the whole build-up is quite strange. Like England here, coming out of quarantine now, they're playing into matches and what have you. There's not these sort of 2 or 3 Shield games or first-class match leading where we get an idea of the sort of form that the sides are at. Australia's come back from the T20 as winners and have all this controversy. So I don't think we know what we're going to get come December 8.